I'm going to show you a really simple 5-step cost breakdown that will help you to build an extension you can actually afford. So why do you need to know the breakdown of your extension costs at this stage? Surely that's something you could figure out along the way. There must be other things that you need to know first, right? Well, possibly. Let me explain. At the start of your project, one of the most important things you will need is a set of plans or a set of drawings for what it is you want to build. So typically you'd go to an architect or a designer and get some plans drawn. Brilliant. But what you actually need, more than just a set of plans, are plans that match your budget. What I mean by this is, if you've got £100,000 to spend, then you need someone to design that extension so that it fits within your budget. Which sounds obvious, but you'd be surprised by how often that doesn't happen. And you end up with plans for an extension that costs way more to build than you budgeted for. This is where a lot of UK homeowners end up. It is a really common problem, and I'm not talking about plans that are a few percent over budget. I'm talking about 50, 80, even 100% over budget. So they've paid several £1,000s for plans that are basically useless because they just can't afford to build them. So what do you need to do to avoid this really common problem? Now, to start with, you need to understand what you're actually going to spend on all of the different parts of your project. Now, construction is the main part, the building work. That's the obvious one, and it is the biggest chunk. But often, it will only account for between 50 to 60% of your total budget. So where does the other 40 to 50% of your budget actually go? Let me show you. Now, a typical home extension with a £100,000 budget would break down something like this. So firstly, you've got your 50 to 60% construction budget. That's £50,000 to £60,000, which covers the cost of building the foundations, the walls, floors, roof, windows and doors, the first stage of the plumbing and the electrics, and the plastering. So you've got the shell of your extension built and watertight, ready for the interior fit and finish. Now, this part of your budget, this 50 to 60%, is actually going to get spent 12 to 18 months into your extension project. So what are you going to spend first? What's the first cost going to be? The first thing you're going to spend a significant amount of money on are your plans. So that's your architect or your designer's fees. Now, this first section, fees and permissions, is the cost of professional services and permissions for your whole project. These include your architect or designer. It includes surveyors, a planning application, a structural engineer to do calculations, a party wall agreement, and finally building control. So when you add up all of the fees for those professionals and all of the costs of the permissions that you need, you'll be looking at around 10% of your total budget, so around £10,000 roughly. The next thing you need to do at the start of your project is to take another 10%, so another £10,000, and that's going to be your contingency fund. You need to take this out of your budget right now so you're not tempted to spend it during the planning stage, because that is an almost guaranteed way of running out of money before the end of your project. So take that 10% of your budget, put it to one side, and treat it as your emergency fund, which is for use only during construction. Now, the next area is your fit and finish. This is the cost of fitting out and finishing the interior of your extension once the construction is done. Now, I split these into two areas because they're very different parts of your project. Construction is about building the shell, it's about the structure and the weatherproofing, it's the container for your extension, if you like. And the fit and finish is everything that goes on inside there, everything that contributes to how the space looks and feels, which is what you're going to experience whenever you're using this space for years and years to come. Your fit and finish includes the painting and decorating, things like internal doors and woodwork, floor coverings, light fittings, heating and furnishings. If your extension includes a kitchen or a bathroom, and definitely if it includes both, then around 30% of your total budget will be spent on the fit and finish, so around £30,000. If you're not fitting a kitchen or a bathroom, then your fit and finish budget will come down to around 20% or maybe a little bit lower. So fit and finish will be between 20 and 30,000 out of your total £100,000 budget. The fifth part is possible extras or additional costs caused by things like needing to relocate or replace a boiler, which is a really common thing to happen, especially with a kitchen extension. Or it's things like moving a gas or a water meter. Doing that can cost several £1,000s. And then it's things like damp ground that may require damp proofing in order to keep that damp out of your extension. You may also need to deal with large trees or roots. If the ground that you want to build your extension on is sloping either up or down away from your house, then there is an amount of work that needs to happen to either dig down or build up the ground level to get it to the same level as the rest of your house. So make a note of any of these extras or additional jobs that may need doing so you can work out with your architect or designer what they're likely to cost, and you can factor that into your budget. Now, the most important step here is to make sure that you end up with plans for an extension you can actually afford to build. And my suggestion for doing this is to take your total budget and break it down into these 5 areas. And then when you talk to your architect or designer about your project, talk to them in terms of your budget for construction and your budget for fit and finish. And completely separate out your contingency and the cost of fees and permissions from any discussion about budget that you have with them. So you're essentially just talking about what can be built with only 80% or less of your total budget. If you do this, then you've got a much better chance of ending up with plans for an extension that you can actually afford to build. So when you get quotes from builders later on in your project, there shouldn't be any nasty surprises. If you would like a free copy of this budget breakdown, as well as 4 other things that you really need to know before you extend your home, I have put a link in the description down below this video, so click on that link and download your free guide. My name is Francis, and if you want the latest reviews, guides, inspiration and advice for your home extension, then hit the like and subscribe buttons down below this video. Take care.